In a quiet corner of a rescue ranch, a 25-year-old Mustang named Spirit stood. Motionless, once a proud symbol of freedom, he now refused to eat his spirit. Seemingly broken caregivers tried everything fresh hay his favorite treats. Even gentle whispers of encouragement, but Spirit had given up days turned to weeks, and the old H's strength began to fade just when it seemed there was no hope. A familiar voice broke through the silence. What happened next would leave everyone who witnessed it forever changed. The sun rose over the rescue ranch, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold, yet the serene beauty of the morning was lost on Spirit, the 25-year-old Mustang, who stood motionless in his paddock, his once shimmering chestnut coat was dull, his ribs faintly visible beneath his weathered frame. Spirit had always been a fighter, a symbol of resilience, but now even the smallest signs of life seemed to have drained from him. For weeks the ranch staff had watched helplessly as the old Mustang turned away from every meal, his favorite alfalfa crisp carrots. Even warm mash mixed with molasses, nothing sparked his interest. Anna, the lead caretaker, spent hours sitting by his paddock, whispering words of comfort. She had seen horses recover from unimaginable hardship before, but Spirit was different. It was as if he had made up his mind to leave this world behind. He's fading fast, Anna murmured to herself one afternoon, wiping a tear from her cheek. I don't know how much longer he can hold on. Spirit's decline had become the talk of the ranch. Other horses neighed softly, as if sensing his sorrow. Volunteers came and went, trying to coax him into eating, but Spirit remained unmoved. His eyes, once fiery and proud, now seemed distant, focused on something far away, something none of them could see. In the evenings, as the ranch grew quiet, Anna often found herself flipping through the old file they had on Spirit. He had been rescued years ago from a life of hardship, a story all too common for wild Mustangs, but there was one detail in his file that always caught her attention. Spirit had belonged to a man named Tom Crawford, a rancher who had saved the horse as a colt and trained him with nothing but patience and love. Tom must have meant everything to him, Anna thought, but that was over a decade ago. There's no way to know if he's even alive. As days stretched into weeks, the situation grew dire. Spirit's legs began to tremble under his own weight, and his breathing slowed. It was clear time was running out. Just when Anna was beginning to lose hope, she stumbled upon an idea. Late one night, sitting by the dim light of her desk lamp, she made a call she wasn't sure would lead anywhere. The number had been buried deep in Spirit's file, next to a note scrawled in faded ink, Tom Crawford, emergency contact. Her hands trembled as she dialed, the tone ringing endlessly. Would this old connection be the key to saving Spirit's life, or had too much time passed for even hope to reach the broken Mustang? The first ring felt like an eternity, the sound echoing emergency contact. In the silence of Anna's tiny office, she stared at the faded number in Spirit's file, her pulse quickening with every unanswered tone. Just as she was about to hang up, a growly voice broke through the static. Hello. Anna hesitated for a moment, her words caught in her throat. Hi, is this Tom Crawford? Yes, the man replied cautiously, his tone carrying the weight of years lived. Who's calling? My name's Anna. I'm calling from the Hope Haven Rescue Ranch. I believe we have a horse that used to be your Spirit, the Mustang. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. For a moment, Anna thought the call had disconnected, but then she heard a sharp intake of breath. Spirit, Tom's voice softened, tinged with disbelief. You have Spirit? Yes, Anna said, her grip tightening on the phone. He's been with us for years, but he's not doing well. He's refusing to eat, and I think her voice cracked. I think he's given up. The line went silent again, but this time Anna could hear the faint sound of rustling papers and labored breathing. Finally, Tom spoke, his voice trembling. I'll be there, he said simply. Give me your address. Anna quickly rattled off the ranch's location, her heart pounding as she hung up. She felt a flicker of hope, a fragile thing, but enough to keep her moving. The next morning, the ranch was alive with cautious anticipation. Anna had informed the staff about Tom's impending visit, and though no one said it out loud, they all shared the same thought. Could this man really make a difference? Tom arrived just Afternoon, his old truck kicking up dust as it rolled down the ranch's gravel driveway. He stepped out slowly, a man in his 60s with a weathered face and eyes that seemed to carry the weight of countless stories. He wore a worn cowboy hat and boots that had clearly seen better days, but there was a quiet strength about him, a steadiness that commanded attention. Anna greeted him at the gate. "Thank you for coming," she said, leading him toward Spirit's paddock. When Tom saw the Mustang, his breath hitched. Spirit stood with his head low, his once powerful frame diminished, but even in his weakened state, there was a flicker of recognition. When Tom stepped closer, "Hey, there, boy," Tom whispered, his voice catching. "It's been a long time." Spirit's ears twitched at the sound of Tom's voice, a subtle movement, but enough to spark a ripple of hope to the small crowd gathered nearby. Tom reached the fence and leaned against it, his weathered hands gripping the wooden rail. "You remember me, don't you?" he murmured. "It's me, old friend." The Mustang's eyes shifted, locking onto Tom's for the first time. There was a spark, faint but undeniable. Tom stayed by the fence for hours, talking softly to Spirit, recounting memories of their time together. He spoke of open fields, long rides, and the trust they had built over years. As the sun began to set, Tom turned to "Anna, can I go in?" Anna hesitated. Spirit had been distant, even aggressive toward strangers in recent months, but something about the way Tom looked at the horse made her nod. Tom entered the paddock slowly, his movements deliberate. He stopped a few feet away, holding out his hand. "I'm here, Spirit," he said softly. "I'm not going anywhere." To everyone's astonishment, Spirit took a step forward, then another. When his muzzle finally brushed against Tom's outstretched hand, the ranch staff gasped. Tom chuckled, his voice thick with emotion. "That's it, boy, I've got you." For the first time in weeks, Spirit lifted his head, a faint glimmer of his old pride returning. But would this fragile connection be enough to save him? The following days at the ranch felt like a delicate balancing act. Spirit's connection to Tom had sparked something, a faint flicker of life, but the Mustang was still far from his old self. His appetite hadn't returned, and his frail frame showed just how much time was running out. Tom, however, refused to give up. He arrived at the ranch every morning before sunrise, carrying a thermos of coffee and a folding chair. He'd sit by Spirit's paddock for hours, speaking in low tones or simply humming an old tune under his breath. His patience was unyielding, his presence steady. One morning, as the first rays of sunlight filtered through the trees, Tom stood outside the paddock holding a small bucket of mash. "Come on, boy," he said softly. "You've got to eat just a little for me." Spirit, standing a few feet away, twitched his ears but didn't move. Tom sighed, lowering the bucket. "I know it's hard," he murmured, "but you're not alone anymore. I'm here." Behind the fence, Anna watched in quiet amazement. She had seen caretakers try every trick in the book to coax Spirit into eating, but none had come close to the subtle progress Tom seemed to be making. "Do you think he'll pull through?" one of the volunteers whispered. Anna hesitated. "I don't know," she admitted, "but if anyone can reach him, it's Tom." That afternoon, Tom decided to try something different. He approached Anna with an idea. "I want to take him out of the paddock," he said, "just for a short walk, see if it stirs something in him." Anna frowned. "He's so weak." "Are you sure that's a good idea?" Tom nodded. "I won't push him, but I need to remind him of who he is, of what he's capable of." Reluctantly, Anna agreed, and together they prepared Spirit for the short journey. Tom slipped a halter over the Mustang's head, his movements gentle and reassuring. Spirit didn't resist, though. The short journey, his steps were slow and unsteady. They led him toward an open field at the edge of the ranch, a place where the grass swayed gently in the breeze, and the air smelled of wildflowers. As they walked, Tom kept his voice low, speaking words of encouragement. "You remember this, don't you?" he said, his hand resting lightly on Spirit's neck. "Open spaces, the wind in your man. This is where you belong." For a while it seemed as though Spirit was simply going through the motions, his gaze distant, but then something shifted. A light breeze carried the scent of the wild grasses, and Spirit's ears perked up. He lifted his head slightly, his nostrils flaring. As he took in the familiar smells, Tom smiled. "That's it, boy, you're still in there." Spirit steps fraction, steadier, his posture more upright. For the first time in weeks, he seemed genuinely engaged with his surroundings. When they returned to the Paddock Tom offered him the bucket of mash. Once more this time Spirit lowered. His head sniffing the contents cautiously, he didn't take a bite, but the act of showing interest was enough to ignite hope in everyone watching Anna approach Tom as he closed the gate behind Spirit. That was incredible, she said. I don't know how you're doing it, but he's changing. Tom chuckled softly. It's not magic, he replied. It's trust, Spirit. We've been through a lot together. He just needs time to remember that he's not alone. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the ranch in hues of orange and purple, Spirit stood by the fence, watching Tom drive away. There was a flicker of recognition in his eyes, a reminder of the bond they once shared, but time was still working against them. Would Spirit's fragile progress be enough to overcome the toll the weeks of neglect had taken on his body? The days that followed were a race against time. Spirit had begun showing subtle signs of life. A nicker when Tom arrived, a flick of his tail at the sight of fresh hay, but his refusal to eat lingered, a stubborn barrier that no amount of coaxing could fully break. Anna and the staff had doubled their efforts, carefully monitoring Spirit's condition and adjusting his diet in hopes of tempting him, yet it was Tom's presence that seemed to make the biggest difference. Each morning he arrived before dawn, setting up his chair by the paddock and speaking to Spirit as if no time had passed since their glory days. Together you used to run like the wind. Boy, Tom said one morning, resting his elbows on the fence, I remember the first time I saw you gallop across the open plains. You were unstoppable. Spirit's ears twitched, his eyes fixed on Tom as though the words were pulling him back to a time when he was strong, fearless, and free. Despite the glimmers of hope, the ranch vet, Dr. Morales, was becoming increasingly concerned. His body is weak, she told Anna one evening after a routine checkup. If he doesn't start eating, soon we're going to lose him. Anna's heart sank. Is there anything else we can try? Dr. Morales hesitated. Honestly, it's a matter of willpower. At this point, Spirit has to decide to fight, and whatever connection he has with Tom, that might be his only chance. The gravity of the situation hit Anna hard. Spirit wasn't just another rescue. He was a symbol of perseverance, a horse who had overcome so much. Losing him now would be a devastating blow, not just for the ranch, but for everyone who had come to care about his story. That night, Anna called Tom. I don't mean to pressure you, she said gently, but if there's anything more you can do, now is the time. Tom's voice was steady, though she could hear the strain beneath his words. I'll be there first thing tomorrow. I won't let him go without a fight. The next morning, Tom arrived with a saddle blanket that had been tucked away for years. It was worn and frayed at the edges, but it carried the unmistakable the next morning scent of their past adventures together. He draped it over the paddock fence, watching Spirit's reaction. At first, the old Mustang simply sniffed at the blanket, his nostrils flaring as he caught the familiar scent. Then slowly he nudged it with his muzzle, his movements deliberate and almost reverent. You remember that, don't you, Tom? Lives forever. Spirit's transformation was nothing short of remarkable. In just a few weeks, the old Mustang had gone from a shadow of himself to a horse full of life and energy. His steps were sure, murmured, stepping closer. It's from the days when it was just you and me out there, no fences, no limits. Spirit's ears flicked forward, his eyes sharpening with a clarity that had been absent for weeks. For the first time, he whined softly, a sound that sent chills down Tom's spine. Encouraged Tom. LED Spirit out to the open field again. This time, he brought a halter and a lead rope, though he didn't plan to push the Mustang too hard. He just wanted to remind him of who he used to be. The walk started slowly, Spirit's steps tentative but steady. Tom talked the entire time, recounting old stories of their time together. Remember that storm we got caught in, he said with a chuckle. I thought we'd never find our way home, but you didn't let up. You kept going even when I was ready to give up. You saved us both. That night, as they reached the far end of the field, Spirit did something unexpected. He lifted his head high, his nostrils flaring as he took in the crisp morning air. Then, with a sudden burst of energy, he trotted forward, the lead rope SLA in Tom's hands. Tom's heart swelled as he watched the Mustang move his steps Gaining confidence with each stride. It wasn't a full gallop, not yet, but it was. A start when they returned to the paddock. Tom offered Spirit a bucket of mash, one more time this time too. Everyone's astonishment, Spirit dipped his muzzle into the bucket and took a tentative bite. The small crowd of ranch staff erupted into cheers, but Tom's eyes filled with tears. He reached out to stroke Spirit's neck, his voice trembling. "That's my boy," he whispered. "You're not done yet." But the battle wasn't over. Spirit's recovery was far from guaranteed, and the road ahead would test the strength of their bond more than ever. The first bite of mash was a victory, but the fight to bring Spirit back to full strength was far from over. Tom knew that every step forward would require patience and persistence. Over the next few days, Spirit's appetite returned in small increments, a few bites here, a nibble there. It wasn't much, but it was enough to give everyone at the ranch a reason to hope. Tom began spending entire days at the ranch, refusing to leave Spirit's side. He worked with the old Mustang in the paddock, walking him short distances and gradually increasing his strength. SP responded to Tom's steady presence, his movements becoming less hesitant and more confident with each passing day. "He's a fighter," Anna remarked one afternoon as she watched Tom lead Spirit through a series of gentle exercises. "I've never seen anything like this. It's the bond they shared," Dr. Morales replied. "That kind of connection can work miracles." Despite the progress, Spirit's recovery wasn't without setbacks. One morning, after a particularly cold night, he seemed lethargic, his steps slow and unsteady. Tom noticed immediately and spent hours coaxing him to move, speaking softly and offering gentle encouragement. "Come on, boy," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You've come too far to give up now." Spirit hesitated. His spirit takes another step, head drooping low. For a moment it seemed as though he might collapse, but then he lifted his gaze, locking eyes with Tom. Something unspoken passed between them, a quiet determination that drove the Spirit to take another step. Word of Spirit's journey began to spread beyond the ranch. Visitors arrived, drawn by the story of the old Mustang and the man who refused to give up on him. They watched from a distance as Tom worked with Spirit, their hearts swelling with admiration and hope. Among the visitors was a young girl named Lily who had been inspired by Spirit's story. She approached Anna shyly, holding a small bundle of carrots. "Can I give these to Spirit?" she asked. Anna smiled. "Of course. Let's go together." Lily stood at the edge of the paddock, her tiny hands clutching the carrots. "Hi, Spirit," she said softly. "You're really brave." To everyone's amazement, Spirit walked up to the fence and took a carrot gently from her hand. Lily beamed, her eyes shining with excitement. Tom watched from a distance, his chest tightening with emotion. Moments like these reminded him why he had fought so hard for Spirit. The old Mustang wasn't just a horse. He was a symbol of resilience, a living testament to the power of love and connection. As the weeks went by, Spirit's strength continued to grow. He began eating regularly. His appetite returning with vigor. His coat regained its luster, and the light in his eyes shone brighter than it had in years. One crisp morning, Tom decided it was time to take Spirit back to the field where he had once roamed freely. He led the Mustang to the edge of the ranch where the grass stretched endlessly beneath a clear blue sky. "This is it, boy," Tom said, his voice steady. "Show them who you are." He removed the halter and stepped back, giving Spirit the freedom to choose. For a moment, the old Mustang stood still, his ears twitching as he surveyed the open space. Then, with a powerful burst of energy, he broke into a trot, his movements fluid and graceful. The ranch staff watched in awe as Spirit galloped across the field, his mane flowing in the wind. It was as if he had reached to discover the essence of who he was, a wild, untamed Spirit, unbroken by time or hardship. Tom stood at the edge of the field, tears streaming down his face. "That's my boy," he whispered. "That's the Spirit I remember." But even as he celebrated Spirit's return to life, Tom knew that their journey wasn't over. The bond they shared had brought them this far, but the challenges they had faced would leave a lasting mark. What neither of them realized was that Spirit's recovery would lead to an opportunity that would change both their. His coat gleamed under the sun, and his appetite was stronger than ever. But for Tom the Journey was about more than just Spirit's recovery. It was about rediscovering his own purpose one crisp morning. As Tom arrived at the ranch, Anna greeted him with a warm smile. "You've got to see this," she said, leading him toward the Spirit's paddock. When they arrived, Spirit stood near the gate, his head held high and his eyes bright. But what caught Tom's attention was the group of people gathered just beyond the fence, representatives from a local Mustang preservation group we heard about. Spirit's story, one of them explained, shaking Tom's hand. His resilience is inspiring, and it's exactly the kind of message we want to share with the world. Tom furrowed his brow. "What do you mean?" The representative smiled. "We want Spirit to be the face of our new awareness campaign. His story could inspire people to support wild Mustang conservation and help other horses in need." Tom glanced at Spirit, who stood proudly in the paddock, his ears perked as if he understood every word. "He's earned his place in the spotlight," Tom said, his voice steady. "If it helps other horses like him, I'm all for." The campaign kicked off a few weeks later with Spirit as its a new purpose. Centerpiece photos and videos of his recovery journey spread like wildfire, capturing the hearts of people across the country. Donations poured into support the preservation group's efforts, and Spirit became a symbol of hope and resilience. But the campaign wasn't just about raising awareness. It was also about giving Spirit a new purpose. As part of the initiative, Tom and Spirit began visiting schools and community events, sharing their story and educating others about the plight of wild Mustangs. During one such visit, a young boy approached Tom, his eyes wide with wonder. "Is Spirit really 25 years old?" he asked. Tom chuckled. "He sure is, but don't Spirit's legacy let his age fool you. He's got more heart than most horses half his age." The boy reached out to stroke Spirit's neck, his face lighting up as the Mustang nickered softly. "I want to help horses like Spirit someday," he said. Moments like these reminded Tom why he had fought so hard for Spirit. Their bond had not only saved the Mustang's life, but had also created ripples that would continue to inspire others for years to come. As Spirit's story gained momentum, the ranch became a hub of activity. Visitors came from far and wide to see the legendary Mustang and hear Tom speak about their journey. Anna and the staff worked tirelessly to accommodate the growing interest while ensuring Spirit's well-being remained the top priority. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Tom stood by Spirit's paddock, reflecting on how far they had come. The Mustang approached him, nudging his shoulder gently. "You've done good, boy," Tom said, his voice thick with emotion. "You've done more than I ever could have imagined, but as much as Spirit had given to the world, Tom knew he couldn't do it forever. The old Mustang deserved peace and rest, and Tom vowed to ensure that Spirit's twilight years were filled with love and comfort. In the coming months, Tom made arrangements to retire Spirit to a sprawling pasture on the ranch where he could roam freely and enjoy the life he had fought so hard to reclaim. Though the public appearances and campaigns slowed, Spirit's legacy continued to grow, inspiring countless others to stand up for animals in need. As Tom watched Spirit graze under the open sky, a sense of calm washed over him. Their journey had been filled with challenges, but it had also been a testament to the unbreakable bond between a man and his horse. "Thank you, Spirit," Tom whispered, "for everything." The ranch was quiet, bathed in the golden light of a late afternoon. Spirit stood in the open pasture, his head held high as the wind ruffled his man. At 25 years old, he had lived a life filled with the challenges and triumphs, but this chapter felt different. For the first time in years, he was at peace. Tom leaned against the fence, watching Spirit graze. The old Mustang's recovery had been nothing short of miraculous, and the bond they had rebuilt was stronger than ever. But more than that, Spirit had left a mark on the world that would not soon be forgotten. Since the campaign, hundreds of wild Mustangs have been rescued and rehomed, their stories echoing the spirit of resilience and hope. That spirit embodied the ranch had expanded its efforts, becoming a sanctuary not only for horses, but for people seeking inspiration and healing. One evening, as Tom sat by Spirit's paddock, Anna joined him. She carried a small wooden plaque, the edges polished, and the words engraved with care. "What's this?" Tom asked. Taking the plaque from her hands, Anna smiled. "We wanted to honor Spirit's Journey, and yours is for the entrance to the pasture Tom's eyes filled with tears as he read the inscription Spirit's pasture, a place of resilience. And redemption, its perfect. Tom whispered thank you. They mounted the plaque at the entrance to the sprawling field where Spirit now spent his days. Visitors would stop to read the words and hear the story of the Mustang, who refused to give up. Spir became more than a symbol. He became a legend. Months turned into years, and Spirit's age began to catch up with him. His movements slowed, and the once powerful gallop became a steady, dignified walk. But even as his body aged, his spirit remained unbroken. One crisp morning, as the first frost of winter sparkled on the grass, Tom walked out to the pasture to check on Spirit. The old Mustang stood beneath his favorite tree, the sunlight streaming through the branches. Hey there, old boy, Tom said. Approaching with a gentle smile, Spirit turned his head, his eyes meeting Tom's. In that moment, there was a quiet understanding between them, a recognition of a life well lived, a bond unshaken by time. Tom spent the morning with Spirit, reminiscing about their journey. He talked about the open plains they used to roam, the storms they had weathered together, and the lessons they had learned along the way. You've done more than anyone could have asked, Tom said, his voice thick with emotion. You've changed lives, Spirit, including mine. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Spirit laid down beneath the tree. Tom sat beside him, his hand resting gently on the Mustang's neck. The old horse let out a deep sigh, his eyes closing as the stars began to fill the sky. When Spirit passed the ranch, held a memorial beneath his favorite tree. People from all over came to pay their respects, sharing stories of how Spirit had touched their lives. His legacy lives on, Anna said during the ceremony, not just in the horses we rescue, but in every heart he inspired. Tom stood by the plaque at the entrance to the pasture, his hand tracing the engraved words, though the pain of loss was heavy. He felt a deep sense of gratitude for the time they had shared. Spirit's story didn't end with his passing. His life became a beacon of hope for others, a reminder that even in the face of adversity, courage and connection can prevail. As Tom walked back to the ranch house, the wind carried the faintest sound of a whinny, a sound that echoed in his heart, a reminder that Spirit's legacy would endure forever. Spirit's story reminds us that resilience and love can overcome even the greatest challenges. If this journey touched your heart, make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with someone who needs a little inspiration today. Together, we can keep spreading messages of hope and courage.